Hey folks, John with Complete Technology Solutions, your friend in the computer business. Now, you may notice things look a little bit different. I am trying to record this video in a totally different way than I've ever done it before, starting with the fact that we're using my webcam instead of my Sony to actually shoot the video. And you might notice we've got the Comica microphone here catching audio. So I don't know how good the audio is going to be, guys. If it's crappy on this one, we'll go back to the other one. We'll find out soon. But today, we answer a question that I get every single day in the email. Here we go. So when it comes to the world of non-lethals, every single one of the non-lethal weapons that we've actually looked at, they all have their individual uses. They have advantages, they have disadvantages. They're all over the board. It can depend on what you're going to be doing with it. Is it going to sit on your cabinet? Do you need something that's realistic looking? Do you need something that's going to be a daily carry? Can it be heavy? Can it be light? How fast do you want to fire? What kind of ammo are you using? Yada, 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 yada. So there's a million different ones. But one of the questions I get most often is, which ones do I personally carry and which ones are going to be the best for basic carry-around self-defense? And I have actually narrowed that down to 3 weapons. You guys have seen me carry the Walther. The Walther PPQ is a fantastic weapon. If you haven't seen the video on that one, I'll go ahead and drop a link up here for you in the description. But the 2 that I alternate the most often if I'm just out wandering around are the Burna and the Glock, the brand new Glock 17 Gen 5. Guys, both of these are fantastic. And as you can see, I got Stumpy on this. Let's take a look at each of these one more time just to remind you what they look like. There's the Glock 17 Gen 5. And this is the Byrna. Now, this is the Byrna SD. Now, one thing I did discover about the Byrna SD, and we'll go into that here in just a second. The Byrna SD, the magazines are designed to hold 6 rounds. You can, if you hot load it with one up in the chamber, and there is a chamber on a Burna, you can have 7 rounds in there. So you're only going to be lacking 1 round difference between the Burna and the Glock. Now, that being said, let's talk about a couple of the basic differences on these weapons. All right, and hopefully Stumpy is getting a good view of this. Okay. A couple of the basic differences. Now, the Burna in all configurations comes with 2 magazines. That's a very big thing, guys, because the magazines are not cheap on either one of these. You're looking at anywhere from 40 to 60 bucks, depending on where you buy them from. The Glock itself actually comes with 1 magazine, but it does have one of the more unique loading mechanisms of any of the T4E product line. The next thing, and guys, you're going to hear me, the big difference between these, the CO2 that you use. Now, in the Glock, you're actually using a 12-gram CO2 cartridge, a standard 12-gram cartridge. Whereas in the Burna, at least in the SD version, you're going to be using an 8-gram cartridge. Now, guys, there is the HD Max for the Burna, which uses a 12-gram. It's got an extension on the end of the barrel in order to use the 12-gram, and they do have a new magazine that'll hold 8 rounds. But for testing purposes, none of that's going to matter, because at the end of the day, guys, you know what I'm talking about. If you're in a self-defense situation and you need to get it out there right now, and you need to defend yourself, that first magazine is what counts, which is why I'm also a big fan of the HDP 50, okay? Yes, that is the HDP 50. At the end of the day, those first rounds count. They matter. So you need them to be accurate and have a punch that's going to stop somebody if they're coming at you. So the way I want to test these is simple, guys. We're going to put these through 2 tests out on the range out there. We're going to put them through an accuracy test shooting from 45 feet. This is further than we've ever fired from. And I'm going to try... The one we're using for Stumpy right now is the Sony. What I'm going to do is when we get out here, I'm going to angle the camera so you can see where I'm going to be standing. And then I'm going to move the camera up so you can actually see it on the target and you can see what we're aiming at. That way we should be able to, you'll be able to actually see where it's hitting nice and close as they're hitting. The disadvantage of that is I'm not going to be able to flip back and forth between me and the camera, guys, but that's okay. You guys get the point. We're going to fire out 1 magazine on each one of these. And that's what it gets for accuracy, 1 magazine. Then we're going to do a second magazine, and this one is going to be a little bit more for power, for punch, the impact factor of it. For ammo, we're going to be using the Burna Kinetic rounds, which are actually the polymer rounds that are 68 caliber. And this is not an advantage but we're going to be using the steel infused rounds on the 43 caliber Glock. Just because those are the two most common rounds you're going to use on either one of these if you're not firing pepper balls, which you should be. And normally what I do, guys, is I alternate my rounds. So it'll be solid pepper, solid pepper, solid pepper. It's just the best way to do it. First one out's always a pepper ball. If they continue coming, you let it fly. So, tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and get these things loaded up. You guys have seen the videos on these. In case you haven't, on the Burna, there's your link. And on the Glock, in case you haven't seen the Glock video, I'll drop you a link up there, right there. Watch those videos because it shows you how to load them and goes through all the regular tests on them. But that's not what this one's about. This is a head-to-head. So, be right back with you. We'll be on the range. All right, guys, here we go. So as you can see, we got us a couple of targets set up down here. The right one we're going to use for the Glock. The left one we're actually going to use for the Burna. And these are what we're going to be firing, guys. This is the rubber with the steel infused 43 caliber. And that is the 68 caliber. I will have links for all of this down in the description for you guys. The 68 caliber riot balls, the Jawbreakers, okay? So that's what we're going to be firing. Now, the position we're going to be firing from, you guys have seen me fire from this position a lot, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to back you up here. I'm going to show you where we're firing from. Now, all right, guys, so here's what we're going to do. I have got a Scully printed here. Now, we actually had tested this on one of the previous videos. What I want to do is we're going to test on the back, and then we're going to test on the side with the different weapons from a little bit closer. We're going to actually shoot within our normal range here. I will still move the camera up so you guys can get a good view of how it's impacting, but I'm going to shoot from right about here, which is still over our normal range. Keep in mind, guys, 3 to 5 would be here to here. So we're going to still be shooting well out of our normal range to test these, okay? So let me get Scully positioned. I can't speak today. Let me get Scully positioned and we'll take some shots and let's see what it actually does. I'm kind of curious. Be right back. All right, so as you can see, we have Scully in position. Let's move you guys up here so you can see the impact. And by the way, where you are right here is about, I'd say about 6 feet away from Scully. Okay, so we're going to be firing right here, and let's see, let's start with, we'll do it the same way we did it last time. So let's start with the Glock, and we've got our 8 new rounds, and I am right where the camera was. I'm actually right where the camera was sitting, so I'd make this about, well, here, let me count it off. We want to do this right. So here's the new Glock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're a little over 7 paces, so about 20, 22 feet, somewhere in that area, okay? All right, so let's see what this actually does to Scully. Shooting for the back. Here we go. Well, hang on a minute. I got to get up here and look at this. What the world? Dude, I've said it once. I'll say it again. You show me a human, it takes hits like that, especially. And by the way, guys, these are headshots. Normally, when you're using pepper balls, you're not even going for headshots. You're going for center mass, which is a lot easier target than popping headshots every time. But you can see what that actually did. Let me bring him up here. No movie magic. That was crazy. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to turn him sideways. This time we're going to take Burna out right on the side. I'm going to keep you on here, guys. And we've got 6 new rounds loaded. We're going to do the same thing, so we're a perfectly fair test. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, little over. About the same 21, 22 feet. Here we go. Well, that kind of removed half of the skull. Yeah, guys, the Burna hits like a freight train, dude. It has to do, number one, with the fact that you're firing a 68 caliber ball, but it hits like a freight train. You can see these puncture because they're smaller. These just obliterate. And that's the whole idea, is these hit hard in a wide area. So penetration, what would you call that? Impact? Yeah. All right, so I'll tell you what, guys, let's move back in here into the studio, and I'll give you a couple other observations I found and tell you which one I carry. Here we go. I love my job, guys. I love my job. Let's be totally honest here, right? Umarex Glock 17, Byrna SD. You can't go wrong with either one. Let me give you the pros and cons. All right. Number one, if you're using... The Byrna's got an impact, guys. You saw that. The impact is unparalleled by pretty much anything I've tested until you start getting into the heavier weapons. That being the case, it's not quite as accurate. I like the pinpoint accuracy of the Glock. The Glock itself, once again, smaller rounds, a lot more penetration, and it fires smooth as glass. I mean, with the Byrna, okay, charging mechanisms. This is another thing that's kind of interesting. The Byrna is not always charged. In order to actually puncture that CO2 cartridge, you have to pull that trigger. Whereas on the Glock, once you have seated that cartridge in there and you've locked it in, it's punctured, the seal is broken, and it's locked in there until you're ready to use it. You could have issues of leaking seals, but once again, I've had a Walther punctured for over a year. Every now and then I'll pull it out, chrono around, and I haven't lost a bit of pressure. So that's going to be, kind of down to how you maintain your weapon, if you're using your Pel gun oil, all of that kind of stuff. So it's not a big deal. I do kind of like the concept of that's one less thing you have to worry about in a self-defense situation. So that point would go to the Byrna. Now, for accessibility, guys, accessories, this is huge. The Byrna doesn't offer a whole lot. I mean, you can get lasers for it and stuff like that. They have a Byrna holster, but it's an external kydex. I'm not real fond of that. And then once you start putting accessories on it, it turns this block into a very unwieldy thing. So unless you're going to use it in its stock version and learn it and use it and so on and so forth, then you're not going to be able to really accessorize. The Glock, on the other hand, any accessory for a Glock 17 Gen 5, anything, holsters, lasers, lights, anything, fit it. Which means that if you already have a Glock 17, all of your accessories are going to fit this weapon, which does make that pretty beneficial. Not to mention the fact that the Burna, you can kind of see that it's a Burna, whereas the Glock, nobody would know the difference. I mean, if you're walking up, they would not know you did not have a Glock 17. That's just the way it is. And by the way, that's one other thing. I get this endlessly. There's always some dude that walks in here. We always talk about the tough guys. Oh, that's not going to stop anybody. You know who people say that? People who've never been hit by them. But there's always also the guy that always comes in here and he'll say something along the lines of like, if you pull that out on a cop, they're going to kill you. And I'm thinking to myself, A, why are you pulling it out on a cop? And B, if you do, you deserve what's coming, buddy. So remember, responsibility, guys. This is like anything else. These things do look like weapons. They operate like weapons, which means that you need to treat them like a weapon. Always point them in a safe direction. Don't pull it unless you're ready to use it. And do not pull the trigger unless you're ready to kill something. That's a simple fact. Treat these with respect. Even though they are non-lethal, they are dangerous. So you need to constantly be careful with them and know you're dealing with an actual self-defense device. Just like you wouldn't pull out a can of pepper spray and douse it in your mouth for breath spray. So be careful with these things, all right? Now, that being said, my favorite. Now, guys, I love both of these weapons. I'm not going to lie. You've seen me carry the Walther. And the other alternate weapon, and here's the reveal, is the Burna. All right, I carry the Burna as a secondary. I alternate it between the Walther. I love the Glock, guys. I love this Glock, but I really like to see the price margin come down a little bit. It's still high because it's Glock branded, and of course that's going to cost a lot. And don't get me wrong, that fires better than the Walther, and it fires better than the Smith. And way better than the TPM-1. And those were all great weapons. But at the end of the day, I want to see that price come down a tiny bit. And you know what we're talking about price on this thing. So these things are about $400. But, you know, price for value, I want impact. I use the Burna. When I alternate, if I want to carry in an open carry holster, I use I would use this, but I'm not going to pay that price for it yet. I use the Walther just because, once again, nobody can tell the difference, and every accessory for a Walther PPQ fits it. So I carry a Burna. I carry a Walther. When this price comes down to around that $300 range, I will be carrying the Glock. So you guys can see it. Preference, they're all going to get the job done. And once again, what's it boil down to? Practice, practice, practice. Know your weapon. Practice with your weapon. Know how it fires. Know where it fires. Know how to load it. Know how to puncture that CO2 if you have to quickly. Know your weapon. That's the whole idea. Well, guys, thank you for watching. I hope this answered some questions for you. I know that's out there. You know, which one's the best one? There's so many non-lethals. Oh, and by the way, you'll notice that when we did the impact version on the Burna, you saw the impact. It just blew that skull apart, right? But we didn't test this bad boy because we were not testing upgraded weapons. These are straight out of the box, okay? And that's the idea. I wanted to be able to test them just like that. And there's not a lot of upgrades you can do to them. There's a little bit of valve tuning you can do on the Burna to turn up the pressure a little bit. There's a tiny bit you can do on the Glock, but nothing that's actually worth doing. So at least not that I found yet. Now, in the future, they'll probably come up with something. But thank you guys so much for watching. Have a fantastic weekend. If you're in the area and you want to see these things live, come on down. Have a great one. Bye-bye.